All right.
Kept thinking 5.
All right, showtime.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll call our meeting to order tonight. I'd like to call on Council Yvette Barham to lead us in a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you all stand?
Our gracious Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity for us to come together, God, and do business for you. Thank you for the guidance, the direction that you've given us. God, thank you for the peace and the understanding and the wisdom. Lord, allow us to come together in order to make the decisions that are in your will. In your most heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Terry Lamar,
Present.
Troy Shropshire,
Here.
Dennis Nance,
Here.
Steve Smith,
Here.
Randy Chitwood,
Here.
Yvette Barham,
Here.
Chris Gontier,
Here.
Laura Seeger.
Here.
Thank you. Item 2, there are no petitions from the audience tonight. Item 3, department head reports. And is our building inspector here? No report. Emergency management, no report. Our fire chief is BK back there? He called me and said he had to make a run to Tulsa to get a part on a truck they were working on, so he is not here tonight. Our golf course, Dennis Bowman, is out of town, but he sent me a report. I'd like to read it to you. A report to Mayor and City Council. He says, "We are excited with the direction of the golf course. January was a very good month." He said 2022 revenue was $21,938 in January of 2022, but January 23 at $26,305. A 3-year average for paid rounds is 205, with 2022 at 318 and 2023 at 451. So that average is coming up because of those numbers. We had 1,070 profile views from Google. 88 people asked for directions, and he believes that those are from out of town. There were 428 searches, 158 website views, and 95 phone calls from Google searches. March 25th, he said we will host the first annual Wagner Special Olympics, and there's a flyer that looks like that. I think that council has one of these. If anybody would like a flyer after the meeting, then I'd be happy to hand that to you. It's the first annual Wagner Special Olympics tournament, and we believe that'll bring in a lot of folks from Wagner, obviously. He said April will be busy with high school and junior high tournaments, and they'll also be hosting a conference tournament at Pryor Golf Club this year. He said it's great to have the personnel and the equipment to be able to produce quality product for our citizens. If you have any questions, please feel to contact Dennis or to come to the golf course. So that's a report from
I have one comment.
Ms. Bowman. Yes.
It's positive. I have noticed over the last maybe year, golf course has put up, or somebody has put up direction signs to the golf course. So they're out there.
You can find it.
You can find it.
You can find a golf course. All right. Library, recognize Ms. Carrie Rarrett.
Hello. First, I wanted to say thank you to the street department for taking such great care of the library and all of the streets in town while we had our winter weather, but they came with the skid steer and took care of our parking lot, and they salted for us. And it was a huge help for not only our staff, but our patrons as well. Pretty much we're doing business as usual right now. We've got a couple things on the agenda today. If you would, there's a Scrivener's error on item I, so if you would take that off so I can explain. And then our forums for information for the elections that are coming up on Tuesday are going well. We had the city clerk and police chief forum on Friday. We had about 50 people attend that one. Last night was the one for the city council. We had just over 40, I think, was our count. And then this Thursday, we'll have one for all the mayoral candidates. And we're expecting a big crowd, so don't disappoint us. Come on out. But if you can't come, they'll be live streamed. It'll be live streamed, and then all of them are recorded, and you can watch them whenever you want to. And then, just a fun tidbit, the Oklahoma has a book award that we do. It's the Sequoia Awards, and they do it for various age groups. Autumn Courtney is our youth services librarian, and she's on the committee to select the books that will be voted on by students in all of Oklahoma for the young adult and high school range. Their master list, which is 15 books that they've chosen out of hundreds of books, will come out next week. But one of the things that we get with her being on that committee is all of the publishers who want their books to be considered for this award for our state send books to the committee members. And she did math. So she's been on the committee since 2020. And in that time, she has gotten 695 books. They're not all young adult books. Some of them were too young. Some of them were, graphic novels or other things. And that amounts to cover price over $13,000 that we didn't have to pay for. Now, we don't necessarily add every single book that she receives because they may not fit our collection development policy. But the books that we don't add, we give away as prizes. We sell on our book sale. So they all benefit the library in some way. But I thought those were pretty impressive numbers. And this year so far, she's gotten 163 books for a total of $3,000. So, yeah, it's definitely worth sending her to Oklahoma City every month to take these meetings. But do you guys have any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Good report. Parks and Cemetery, Frank Powell called in, and he is ill and is not able to be here tonight. Police Department, recognize Chief Nichols.
Johnson. We're still in the process of trying to transition to our new building, and we're trying to get the old one cleaned out, stuff moved around. Still got a lot of stuff in the back that we're going to have to end up throwing away, disposing of, but we're working diligently on that, and we will have our stats for you at the next council meeting for the animal shelter and the police department. And I believe if Becky's here, give you a little information on the animal shelter.
Last 2 days, just not really the animal shelter, but last 2 days I have picked up sick animals, 2 skunks and a raccoon. Last year we went through the distemper thing. We did go ahead and send the one skunk off today, so waiting on some results for that. But this is a good time to let everybody know vaccinations. Very important. I don't know how to spread that any better than what we did last year, but if we could get the word out somehow, just make sure all your animals are vaccinated, just because picking some sick ones up again.
Any questions for either one of us? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our Recreation Center, recognize Houston Britton.
Council, Mayor. Jessica's out tonight, so she asked me to fill in. So she's got a pretty good report here. I think this might be a typo, but I'm going to say it anyway because it sounds good. 186 new members last month. It may be 86, but it might be 186. I like 186. Membership's up $3,000 in January. Overall internal revenue up $5,800 from December to January. We're dealing with some HVAC problems right now, and we're also going to need to replace the pool heater, which has been brought to our attention on the board. We did put that in the budget last year. We're just waiting on the bids to come in, and so that's already been budgeted. When it does, we'll replace it. We got lucky last year, didn't have to, but thankfully we have it in the budget. Just completed a January challenge. We had 64 people participate, and together they walked over 16 million miles. or 16 million steps.
I was gonna
Steps.
say, wow.
See, I like miles better. 16 million steps, January the 4th through the 31st. So it was a great event. Yesterday, they began their Heart Healthy Challenge, where they encourage our members to focus on their heart health by getting 30 minutes of exercise in a day. And then Jackie just had a lifeguard training. January added 2 new lifeguards to our payroll. This has allowed us to add Friday nights back to our swim schedule, and we'll be able to provide guards for the spring break open swim. All right. Any questions?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yep.
What's the status of your hiring for the rec center director?
Okay, so good question. We have interviewed 4 individuals for that position, and we are interviewing a 5th individual tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. We have some really good candidates, and so once we determine, we'll go through those and we'll do a second round of interviews where we're gonna include all of our board members. We want this to be, we want multiple people interviewing this position. This is a very, very important position. Jessica has done a wonderful job for us. We hate to lose her. In fact, I think our board denied her that, but she's decided to leave anyway. But we feel that this is a very, very important position, and we want to make sure that we get the right individual and having different perspectives from our board and our mayor.
When is her official last day to work and official official
I
day?
believe it's April 7th.
April 6th.
6th or 7th.
I think April 6th is her last day.
Last day, yeah. The plan is to have this individual in place, as we had discussed before, to shadow her for a full month, which will be good. That way, when that person is turned loose, then they'll be ready to go and have an idea of kind of what the day-to-day operations are. We're very excited about some really, really good candidates. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, Houston. Street Department? Mr. Buddy Glenn.
Bill, I probably don't have to tell you what we done this last week. It was pretty well plain and cut and dry, so. No, like I said, we had that weather come in, so, we've been out clearing streets, and, once we got those done, then, like I said, when it finally quit icing up, and then we went through and cleared out the off-street parking and shoveled sidewalks. The only bad part about that is when everybody was taking pictures, they never got me actually showing something. I was only standing, kind of resting out there doing it, but, so I never really got a picture of me out there doing it, so. But,
I was a witness that you were out there working super hard, and then I went in to say, hey, go take their picture, and then you just stood there.
well, see, there you see, but you could have took it while I was
But you
out.
were working very hard, thank you. Thank you
Okay.
so much for shoveling our sidewalks.
But we did have, one of our plow trucks, did go down after all this here. We thought it was the fuel pump, and our mechanic down at the shop, we ordered one and got it put on. And, we thought that it fixed it, but then it started acting up the same way. It's starving for fuel. Like I said, we've changed filters and everything that we could on it. And the only other thing we found, we called, Big Cabin Diesel, I think it's called Bruckner's now, I think it's the name of it. And they said it could be a fuel injector pump, which is inside the motor, that it has to be, if you don't have a timing light for that type of vehicle, then you could really mess things up. So we took it down there. They're gonna run a diagnostic on it first. It could be something simple. It may not be that. They still have some, a fuel sensor that's on there that we couldn't locate anywhere, but they said there's one on there, which that actually could be what it is. It could be out, and it's not getting, letting the fuel, get to the injectors or whatever to bring it, for it to run correctly, but, other than that, like I said, this week we've been trying to clean equipment up and, clean the floors with all the water with the salt and sand and stuff inside the shop, trying to get it cleaned up, then all the equipment, we're trying to wash it down and get all the salt off of that, so. But other than that, that's what we've been doing. Anybody got any questions, or?
Good job this week. Thank you, buddy.
Hard work.
Yeah, if you thought that, you got a picture of me with that shovel.
Don't go too far, buddy. It's a special day when we have the opportunity to recognize city employees for 25 years of faithful service. And we have that opportunity to do that to two of our employees this evening. And Ms. Eva, would you come up here, please? And I'd like to present you a certificate. This comes from Oklahoma Municipal League. It's entered upon its honor roll of service. The name of Eva J. Smith. Eva J. Smith in recognition of a quarter-century service to the city of Pryor Creek.
It's a lot of service.
Thank you. He joined the force on May the 5th, 1997.
That's right.
Thank you. Also, Mr. Buddy Glenn, if you'd come up here, please.
Go get your shovel.
Wait a minute, you were pointing at a shovel whenever.
That's
That's the one I was using.
This is Oklahoma Municipal League Incorporated has entered upon its honor roll of service the name of Buddy J. Glenn in recognition of quarter-century service to the city of Pryor Creek, Oklahoma, signed by Ray Poland and signed by Mike Field. So, congratulations, and thank you. Put it on your cup. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Council, if you can find the addendum in your packet and the packet item, we'll go ahead and address the addendum at this time. Discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation. This is going to take a little time to read it, so bear with me. Discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation from the Pryor Creek Economic Development Trust Authority and the City of Pryor Creek, Oklahoma, entering into a long-term lease agreement with American Legion Post 182, which is located in Pryor Creek, Oklahoma, for the purpose of economic development, management, and utilization of the baseball field toward the mission of the promotion of sporting activity for area youth. The land as described, and I'm going to read this description, a tract of land being a part of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 13, Township 21 North, Range 18 East of the Indian Meridian, Mays County, Oklahoma. Said tract of land being more particularly described as follows: beginning at half-inch iron pin at the northwest corner of said southwest quarter of the northeast quarter, thence south 1 degree, 34 minutes, 4 seconds east along the west line of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter, a distance of 397.10 feet as to a half-inch iron pin, thence north 85 degrees, 17 minutes, 13 seconds east, 153.61 feet to a half-inch iron pin, thence northeasterly on a non-tangent curve to north 63 degrees, 34 minutes, 24 seconds east, 239.59 feet, thence northeasterly as a non-tangent curve to the left having a radius of 429.29 feet, an arc distance of 227.43 feet, said curve being subtended by a chord of north 13 degree, 14 minutes, 16 seconds east, 224.77 feet to a half-inch iron pin, thence south 88 degrees, 48 minutes, 31 seconds west, 86.12 feet to a 3/8 iron pin, thence north 1 degree, 14 minutes, 54 seconds west, 70 feet, in parentheses, 70.09 feet measured, to an existing chiseled X and a point on the north line of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter, thence south 88 degrees, 30 minutes, 55 seconds west, 344.37 feet to the point of beginning. Bearings are referenced to the Oklahoma State Plane Coordinate System and are not astronomical. Thank you for bearing with me. This action is pending a written agreement which is agreeable to both parties, City of Pryor Creek and Oklahoma, and Pryor Creek, Oklahoma American Legion Post 82. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
Motion Shropshire, second Chitwood. Now, could I ask Mr. Lawson to come to the microphone and give some explanation?
As he's doing that, Mayor, could I just issue a point of clarification?
Sure.
I don't believe, and I could be corrected, but I don't believe that the EDTA's motion was actually for a long-term lease. I think that their motion was in support of an arrangement to be made, whether that be by deed or lease. I believe that Mr. Moore brought up the prospect of doing a lease when we had been talking about a deed as well. So we're not going to be taking like action tonight to enter into an agreement because that's pending, but I just wanted to make that clarification.
So it may not be a lease, it may be some other kind of arrangement.
Right.
That our attorneys will gather together, and so this will be pending an agreement that is written up.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Do we need to change our motion?
I think you're fine with the way it's stated because we're not actually going to approve
Okay.
whatever that is tonight.
Thank you, counsel, I appreciate that.
I'm Tim Lawson, I'm the commander out of post, it's actually post 182. So, I'm gonna give you a little history about the Legion and what we do around town, because a lot of people have a misconception that we're just a lounge and sit around and tell war stories in a smoke-filled building. And that's probably was the case many years ago, but we're 100% smoke-free now. And we do a lot more, like for the city, a couple years back, Park Department couldn't find the time to put the playground equipment at Bobby Buck Park. The Legion and Monty Littlefield, one of the guys that come out there a lot, donated our time and went out to Bobby Buck Park and put the playground equipment up. We donated a bench to Main Street. It's over there in front of Ivan's Jewelry. We donate our facility to the high school band. Hope Coalition, football's been out there doing stuff. A-Bait, a lot of events out there, and there's just many more fundraisers of different people that come out in town. Annually, at the Toy Run, we donate our facility, and $1,000 we give to the A-Bait Toy Run. We provide the food for free for everybody that brings a toy in. And then we, most importantly, we support our vets, and the way we do that is, I look back and our annual spend on vets over the last 5 years, about an average of $5,000 in cash donations. So some vet comes in and says, I need $100 for gas. We don't ask a question, we give him $100 for gas. We bought a motel rooms, different things like that. Plan the Memorial Day ceremony, we help out with the Veterans Day ceremony. And then the one thing I really love, we team up with the FFA and the 4-H, and this year was the first year that we hit every cemetery in Mays County and put flags up on every veteran's grave on Memorial Day. So we're a very active organization, and we really don't tell a whole lot of people that. So what we decided to do, about in October of last year, I was approached about bringing Legion Baseball back into Pryor, Oklahoma. A little history of Legion Baseball, started in 1925, and it's not just some mom and pop league, it's a premier league of baseball. They've had players like Yogi Berra, Ted Williams, Frank Robinson, all played Legion ball, and they ended up in the major leagues. So it is a premier league. I was at the forum last night, heard Councilor Seaver talk about bringing that premier stuff back to Pryor because a lot of people are having to go out of town. It was something that was mentioned to us from Coach O when we talked to him at the school. And so as we talked to Coach O, Pryor Youth Baseball, and Bradford School, we decided to work as a group to see what we could best do with the Legion Field. And nobody really wanted to take it on, so of course the Legion said, well, we'll take it on. Not sure why, but we will. And our plan is to bring events into town, use it as a generator of money so the facility funds itself, and bring in competitive ball at the ages from 13 and under to junior high, so we're not interfering or stealing kids from the junior high. And then from the junior high to the high school, if they want to play Legion ball in the summer, Coach O can put a team in, whatever. But the other deal was when seniors turn 18, they have nowhere to go play. A lot of them are heading to Northwest Arkansas to go play ball. And so that was our big deal, was a 18-19 team. Went and talked to Chris Harrison and Mr. Miller and talked to them a little bit about that, and they just said, you're looking at a great deal, bringing in 10 to 15 teams at a tournament on a weekend to play in a Legion tournament for that 18, 19-year-old group, which is an economic impact to Pryor with motels, restaurants, everything else. So we thought, well, we'll take it on, and it helps the community, helps the Legion. It also keeps the field in working order for everybody that wants to play on it. And what we're not doing is we're not going to set it up where the school can't play on it, Bradford can't play on it. We want to team up with them and let them play on it. We just want to be able to manage it, so because we intend to go out and get donations to do the necessary upkeep. I mean, there's the privacy fence needs fixed right now. When the school built their new concession, they took the restrooms out, so if things happen where we can't use those restrooms, we're gonna have to build restrooms into the facility. Painting needs to take place, and then the biggest deal is the field hasn't been updated or upkeeped. Weeds have grown up, dirt needs to be brought back in, fertilized, and I talked with Dennis Bowman a couple of times, and he's already volunteered to come out and help us get the turf back to where it needs to be to make it a Premier League. But all that comes with a time crunch, because talking to Dennis, as far as the Legion's concerned, for the games, we don't need anything until about the end of May, sooner the better for the tournament. But the field needs to start getting taken care of around the first 2 weeks of March. So that's where our time crunch comes in. I'm open for questions if you have any. I think I maybe covered it all, maybe too much.
So this is a recommendation from Economic Development Trust Authority to City Council to go ahead and take the recommendation and let there be an arrangement made, an arrangement created so that they can move forward. And so this would be this action would be action to say, yeah, we're supportive of this, and go ahead and allow Legion to go ahead and move forward, and to put the legal action then in place to get it done. So Tim came. He called me a month or so ago and said, "Can we talk about this?" And I gathered up some others in the room. Jared Crisp gathered up our city attorney, and we talked about how we might do this. We got it up. Adam, were you there? I think you were there as well. Yeah. So this is something we've been looking at, trying to go through proper channels to be able to get it done appropriately. So
I think this is a great place to start. A lot that I hear from the people in the neighborhood is the teenagers walking around in the summertime. Again, they don't have the pool to go to. I think this will offer, it's a beginning to help with the crisis that we have with the youth that age. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Anything else for me? Or?
Your original proposal was that the city donate or deed this property to you all, correct?
Yes, that's what we originally talked about.
And then at the EDTA meeting, it was kind of discussed about a lease agreement instead of giving the property.
Right.
Are you still open to that negotiation on that?
There's been a lot of discussion in the last
24 hours.
24 hours, and that would be something I'd have to take back to the board my board. And so, like I said, it's all a time crunch deal. And by the time we would get that lease to us, we'd be looking into the third week of March, when we could have that meeting to say if we wanted to go into a long-term lease. There's a lot of hesitation from my side, the Legion side, on using that donated money to go and fix something and not knowing long-term what's gonna happen with that. It's just one of those things, and we really gotta dig into our bylaws to see if we can even do that. I haven't even done that yet, so.
So for the
think-
rest of this group, that was the original plan. And I don't know if it was mentioned, it just said a pending written agreement agreeable to both parties.
Right.
If I remember right, Mr. Moore at the EDTA yesterday brought it up about the possibility of not lease, or not giving it to them. Obviously, it's the city's property, and it would be giving them a parcel of land that would be landlocked between the football field and the other baseball field facility parks. I personally think that this is a win-win for the city to partner with them, to get them on board to do what they're wanting to do. But I am reluctant to a deed to just give it away unless we came up with an agreement for a lease of some sort. But I think it would be a win-win, because this baseball field is basically not being used since the high school built their new one. And it would be a win-win for them to be able to take it, to make their improvements and bring all these things to Pryor. But
So the hiccup here is, Chad Wolf has been to the park board several times to address us, because he's wanting to bring back, there's a group of people that want to bring back youth baseball. And there's a lot of donors out there, but they won't donate if you don't own the property. That's the hiccup, because,
Can I address that maybe a little bit?
Please.
Some thoughts. So as the mayor indicated, we had some preliminary meetings when they came.
Excuse me, I've had numerous people ask, when you speak, could you speak into the mic? Because they want to hear what you're saying. I've had constituents ask because they want to hear it, watching it online.
Usually people want me to be quiet.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I've been asked.
All right, so when we first started having these meetings and discussions, they came to us saying, we really need to have the field donated to our program, because they're gonna spend a lot of money out there. So kind of the preliminary, so that you guys can be thinking about this, because I expect it'll come back at the next meeting. The preliminary plan that I had thought was a good plan was that the city be able to declare that field surplus, surplus property, and then deed it to them under a quitclaim deed. So it's not a warranty deed, which is not hugely significant to most people, but, it's been city property forever, so there's no sense in a warranty. But we could do a quitclaim deed to them with what's called a reversionary clause in it, that indicates that if it ceases to be used at any time in the future as a Legion ball field, that it reverts back to the ownership of the city. So if the program for some reason failed, or if they decided to quit, no big deal. It just comes back to the city, and then we've got the property again. Those are called reversionary clauses. You see them a lot of times in charitable organization donations, churches, things like that. One of the things I really like about doing that is that it severs all liability of the city. So it accomplishes their purpose by putting it in their hands and in their ownership, so that they can raise the funds that they need to raise and not have any hiccups with it. But also, if we don't own it and somebody gets hurt out there, it's not our property. And so the city is insulated from liability, yet with the security of getting it back if the program stops.
We wouldn't have to have a large sum of money for a deed. We could deed it for a
Costs about
significant.
$13.
Yeah, yeah,
If that, yeah.
okay.
just as a formality, has this gone to the park board? Did they even, since it is part of the park system, do they even know about this?
I
This is a
talked,
formality and a,
I talked to Frank Powell about it, our
Okay.
department head, but no, it has not gone to park board for discussion.
okay.
I think another benefit to the city is the upkeep. If we don't have to maintain it.
Yeah, it's sad.
It's sad we don't have to maintain it. We don't, you know, we don't mow it, we don't have the upkeep, and it's a good facility. Needs to be used.
I think what was discussed is worth considering. I used to have a real estate license and quit claim deeds, pretty effective. But I do think we need to look into everything that we were discussing and make sure as well. But it could work.
Other discussion? Call for vote?
Lamar,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Nance,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Chipwood,
Yes.
Barham,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Motion carries. Item B, under Mayor's report, report from Economic Development Trust Authority. Recognize Mr. Adam Anderson.
Much shorter piece of paper than last time.
Yeah.
We've got a timer. All I have to do is be less than an hour and I'm good. No, what I came today to talk about was the EDTA meeting yesterday. You already heard the part about the baseball field. And yes, we were in support of that and the long-term arrangement because of the economic piece that it would bring into Pryor. But the other part that we had yesterday was a report from Jim Bloom and Ricky Hayes regarding the development across the street. As you know, it will be a grocery store. We asked Mr. Bloom to discuss his plans, where he was in funding, where he was on the transfer of the real estate, where he was in the design phase, and what the timeline was for those. So Mr. Bloom pointed out that he was very familiar with grocery stores and grocery store operations, with raising food organically. He was a farmer, he said, by experience and trade. He's expressed the amount of time that he had spent in Africa and other countries helping develop their food system, and that during the pandemic, that's what made him look back at the United States and realize that our food system, in his opinion, was not what it needed to be. One of the things that he brought up was that Mays County, Oklahoma in general, is a food desert. That kind of shocked some of us on the committee. I think that once he explained some of that to us, it's not that we don't have a Walmart, we don't have Homeland that you can drive to and get food. We also thought that maybe it was because there were some barriers to transportation for some of our citizens, but that's not it. It's that there is not much food grown in Oklahoma that is actually consumed in Oklahoma. That's what makes us a food desert. That is one of the items that he wants to address with this model of building grocery stores and building a local farm that supplies that grocery store as well as other grocery stores. So the network that he's looking at with Pryor is one of 10 grocery stores in Oklahoma. Pryor will have one of the grow facilities for organic vegetables and fruits. And then it will help supply this store and other stores. I'm assuming there will be other types of facilities built around those other towns that will have these, that will help supply us as well as their local community. His funding, so right now in his funding mix, he told us that he had closed on his loan in December. It was not the full funding package, it was the first tranche of funding for the acquisition of the land and the development of the plans for the land and the site plan. We asked him when that occurred. Like I said, he said it was in December. He has not gotten the release of those funds yet. He told us that it was international funding. It goes through Zurich. They have not completely released that funding. It is using equity and it is using private equity, which does involve a little bit more complex system than just getting funding from a local bank or an internationally active bank operating in the United States. So there are accountants and lawyers for everybody involved in these equity funds that are all looking at this stuff. We did have him point out a couple of times that the real estate closings have not occurred, but he did confirm to us that he had signed extensions for each of the real estate properties that he had a contract on, or the city has a contract on. John Hawkins was here, and I asked the question if Mr. Hawkins or other landowners were getting leery of what was going on, if they were worried about the timeline, and John didn't appear that he was worried about it. Like I said, they did say that there had been extensions signed. And as far as the design, he brought up his architect, who during the meeting said that he was going to locate an office in Pryor, so that he was here during the building so that he could watch it and monitor it. The space that he showed us, I think there were some pictures that Main Street shared on their Facebook page. Larry, I don't know if you have those with us tonight or not.
No,
but,
they took those with
it is a three-story, it's a multi-level, with one part of it being three-story. The grocery store will be on the bottom floor, and then 2 floors of living space above it. There is a parking garage attached to it. It does go right up to the property line with Harriet Dunham's real estate office. The green space behind it does not have a design for it yet, and these are just conceptual drawings at this point. They will be engaging with Main Street and the Chamber and the city and business owners and other downtown entities to help make that design to where it doesn't just stick out and look completely awkward downtown. Their design, their goal is for it to fit into our downtown, not to just detract from it and look completely out of place. Like I said, the green space behind is still open for planning. They had so that we could get an idea of what the green space size would be. It's about the size of a football field. They are not changing the driveway or the alleyway behind. That will still be there. The building has a breezeway that goes through the center that opens up to that green space, and there are plans for storefronts across both sides of that breezeway. It is a total investment in Pryor of $400 million. Mr. Bloom did not distinguish between the amount of funds that would be spent in the downtown piece versus the farm outside of town. I am kind of making the assumption that it's $400 million with both of those. I believe that's correct, but
That's correct.
I did not ask him that question. As a matter of fact, we didn't ask him any specific questions about the property outside of town. We should have, but we did not.
So to clarify, that property is inside the city limits.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it is inside the city.
Inside the city limits, yes.
But outside of our downtown area, I should say. But in the past, I have talked with him about that. It will include not just your run-of-the-mill greenhouses with visqueen over them. These will be sturdy structures that are built to last and to continually grow food. He has plans that will incorporate some green energy into those, growing things continually throughout the year. Like I said, this is not just to produce what the grocery store in Pryor will need. We did ask him what his timeline was. He was very open in saying, you know, I have phases of a project that I go through. I don't go from phase 1 to phase 2 until phase 1 is solid and is there, and phase 2 has a good plan for moving forward. But he said it's a 5-year plan. So we've got a project that's been going for about a year and a half.
About 2.5.
Maybe about 2.5 years.
2.5 years, yes.
So it's looking at a 7-year window. His financing does seem pretty complex. He seemed to have a good understanding of it. He had architects and business partners that were here with him. Some of the questions that we did ask that were not related just to the product or project were how important was, and I don't want anything thrown at me, but how important was Ricky Hayes in getting him to Pryor? Jim said, with no disrespect to Pryor, he said, I didn't know where this place was. And I had no reason to know where this place was. He had met Ricky through another source. They've known each other for many years. And he said that Ricky called him and said, I've got a place that you probably ought to go check out. It's got a downtown that is not, it is not dead by any means. It is vibrant and there are things going on. So you wouldn't have to worry about rebuilding the town, but it is a place that could use your type of investment. So he said that's where he decided to come to Pryor, met with the mayor, and started the process. So I know there's been a lot of talk about what has Ricky done, and I know this is not a project that is complete. It's a project that is, it's got a 5-year window on it. It's got a $400 million price tag. That's a big dollar. That's a 5-year plan. But those are the questions that EDTA did ask, and those are the responses that we had. I know that you guys have probably watched the streaming video. I know Mr. Lamar was there, so if I missed anything, feel free to say something or ask me a question and jog a memory.
I have a couple questions you may or may not answer. This funding that's foreign,
Yes.
do we know from what country that's coming from? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, the Chinese Communist Party is buying up farmland, and I don't want our enemies to be controlling our food supply, and I would love to know if that's gonna be a part of this equation.
I have not seen his funding mix or where those come from. I know that he mentioned Zurich and he mentioned Dubai, but he did not go into details about where any of the private equity funds were coming from.
Is it a normal practice to know where those funds are coming from?
For the,
Experience?
no.
Okay.
I mean, if you're the seller, you don't care, you get your money. If you're the town that it's being built in, you don't really care because you're not putting the money in, it's their money. The entities that would care would be the state of Oklahoma, because it is illegal in the Constitution for a foreign entity to own land in Oklahoma. FinCEN would care. I could really nerd out and go into banking, BSA, all of that stuff. They would care.
And that's why I asked you that question.
It would not be whatever bank the wire comes through to get here, they'll care.
So as far as the economic impact, did he talk about how many jobs this might produce, the housing that's going to be needed?
He didn't talk directly about the housing. He did indicate that Pryor was going in the right direction with housing, with the housing starts that had started. He talked a little bit about the grocery store.
So after full production, he said, he told me that upwards to somewhere around 300 jobs with full production.
And that included the grocery store and the organic grow. We did also ask him regarding the grocery store, because a lot of the storefronts are obviously going to be leased to other people. It does include a leasable space for workforce. I know that was a topic of discussion. He did point out very quickly, there was a workforce lady here, I can't remember her name.
Cheryl.
But he has been in contact with them, or his representatives have, about, there will be a portion of time where you have to move somewhere else, but they absolutely plan to design a space that is right for them, and that they are part of what will be occupying that facility. But the grocery store, I asked him if that was something that he was going to operate himself, if that was something that was going to be operated by a third party, if he was bringing in a grocery store to it, and he said no, that was one of the divisions that this new entity would develop, is a grocery store operating arm. So his company would control the building, the grocery store operations, and most of the food that they sold.
So the apartments intended for?
General use, but he did not have an interior layout or a number of apartments. I wouldn't suspect that it is, apartment complex size, just because of the sizing of that area, and it does just cover from Harriet's place to the street and then back to the alley.
It's super exciting. Mayor, good work.
He is prepared, after the closing of the properties, then he's prepared to let that design phase go ahead and proceed. So that'll be the activity that we'll see first, is the design phase.
I'm assuming there's going to be lots of meetings, like you said, allowing people. That's really neat.
Yes,
that
and-
he's
and-
open to allowing us to have a voice into what he's paying for.
Right.
Yeah.
And kind of to get to the date that this was picked, I did have lunch with Jim and invited him to come to the EDTA meeting.
Nice.
And we sat down and kind of started figuring out a plan. So the normal EDTA meeting is the second Monday of the month. I had already asked for that meeting to be moved because as chairman, I feel like I should be there. So I'm out of town next week, so I'd asked for that to be moved. The only date that Jim had was the 6th, so that's how we settled on him coming, doing that presentation so that EDTA could be a vital part of this because we want to be part of planning what happens on that and what happens with that green space. So
Great
that's
work.
all I've got unless you guys have anything else.
It's exciting.
It's very exciting.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Adam. Item C. Item C, discussion and possible action regarding change order number 1 from Envision Civil Contractors LLC for the Whitaker Park Tennis Facility Parking Improvements Project, PRY 21-07, regarding the removal of existing curb and 3 feet into existing asphalt. For the length of the project, this also includes the replacement of the area with a 3-foot concrete apron and excavation of proposed 4-foot concrete sidewalk at a cost of $16,832.25 to Envision Civil Contractors and $8,690 to the Street Department for from Parks Capital Outlay account 444455415. It is to be noted that materials be supplied by the city, and Envision's quote is only for labor and equipment to do the work proposed. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion Barham,
Second.
second Shropshire. Discussion.
Yes, sir, I have some discussion. Still, the Oklahoma statute 61-112 is required by Oklahoma law to have this information available here at City Hall. Checked on it again today, it was not available. We cannot research anything to see who could possibly at fault here. Haven't seen the non-collusion agreements, or any of that. And I believe if we're not in legal compliance, and we also cannot research and do our due diligence, I do not think it is appropriate for us to even be voting on this.
Other discussion? Mr. Powell, are the plans in your office?
Yes, we have the documents for that, and as I indicated before, our intent is to provide those to the city for records purposes at the conclusion of the project, as-built drawings.
But that violates state law. We're required to have it. It's state law.
Mr. Councilman, I will respectfully disagree that that's how the current code reads, but that's it. You do have to have them on site at the conclusion of the project.
61-112, bids, contracts, bonds, open for public inspection. All bids, both successful and unsuccessful, and all contracts are required. Bonds shall be placed on file and maintained in the office of the awarding public agency for a period of 5 years from the date of opening of bids, or for a period of 3 years from the date of completion of the contract, whichever is longer, shall be open to public inspection and shall be matters of public record.
I cannot
That's the law.
disagree with everything you've indicated.
I will say, I called Mr. Powell, and at any time, I mean, I don't have the freedom to be able to come up here and look at those plans, but he was very willing to take my phone call back quickly, was able to answer any question I have. So I would just encourage anybody that does not have what they're needing to do their research to just pick up the phone and call and just ask. I mean, just ask where it is.
Well, it's supposed to be here by law.
But again, you
It's
can.
not an option, it's a law.
Any other questions for me?
Council, would you like to render opinion for us or give us guidance in that regard?
I think best practice would be to have a set of the plans here. I think that since our city engineer has the plans and the documents and they are available through the city engineer, I think we're fine insofar as compliance. But I think best practice, because it does say at our office, we should have a copy of those things here.
Should we now table it?
No, you don't have to table it.
Can I speak to that specific item?
Please.
This is, obviously, you have, what's before you tonight is approval of this change order. Tabling the item, I assume, would mean that it would at least be 2 weeks out, maybe 4 weeks out, before you could do anything. This contractor has made this proposal to do this work at a specific date and time. He has lots of work coming up in the spring, and he's worked this out so that he can come back in the middle of February to finish this work. We need it done by the city. We need it done before tennis season starts.
Right.
Before March. So postponing this at this point in time for that technicality puts us in dire straits as far as getting this usable this year for tennis and spring activities.
But we don't know who's at fault without being able to look at the documents. We can't even render a judgment on that. And like I said, it's the law. And 3 weeks ago, I read this same thing, and it said it. And I went back and checked again, it's still not here. It's not, it's the law so that we can do our job, and any public person who maybe doesn't know how to get a hold of you legally should be able to come see it. And I just don't believe we're doing our job as city council
Chris,
to approve it.
I'm gonna just be very transparent with everyone. Where there is a lack of communication, the void is filled with negativity. If you cannot pick up the phone and find out what his number is to ask for those plans, then you are just as at fault as the party that you're accusing. It is time that we communicate openly, phone to phone, person to person, like a decent person of character, instead of waiting for a public forum to berate people.
Not berating.
I am just, and now I am finished.
I'd like to say that in that account, we do have $36,057.79 in that account, so we do have funds available.
I would like to say that this seems to be a common practice, and it's not been an issue until this, and I think he deserves a little bit of grace. And, moving forward, if we would like to say, this is going to be important, let's have the plans in the future at this time. We need to move forward because this is gonna hold up a lot of things. I understand what you're saying, Chris. I do. I understand moving forward, we need to do that, but I think we need to take action tonight.
And I appreciate all of the work that you do. I'm not taking that away, but I think you do need to communicate in between meetings.
Is there a possibility, Mr. Powell, that you could make a copy of those and bring them up to the city hall here to have them in this week sometime?
Yes, sir, that can be done.
Would that be the easy fix for it?
They're all together.
Okay.
Do you have those as an electronic file?
No.
Okay.
Those are all wet signature items that you need to keep on file. The
Very good.
existing bids are, the bids of the other bidders is a packet that is their original documents as well.
Very good.
Would you remind me what we're changing it to again? How are you going to fix it?
And please explain, give background on why we're here. Why are we redoing this? Please.
There are under the current change order request, there are 4 items, major items that this covers. The remove and replace of the existing curb along Park Street, the addition of additional sidewalk to the south side of the existing sidewalk in that same general area, the addition of bollards, posts around a guy wire pole that's sitting in the middle of the parking lot, and the addition of what I refer to as standing curbs at both the east end and west end of this parking lot. The last three items I just described, the sidewalk, the bollards, and the standing curbs were in, the sidewalk was not, because we didn't need it, but the bollards and the the standing curbs at the east and west ends were in the original bid that was done last fall, and it came in well over the budget money that the city had. So in the course, which, by the way, that project, or that thing was an off-street parking lot where we now have on-street parking at this point. But in an attempt to get this project into budget and per our engineer or JCDC contract with the city, we provided the redesign of that and downsizing of the parking lot and removal of items that were not critical to the construction of that sidewalk, or that parking lot at the time, to get that in to get it within budget. The intent or the direction that we were told at that time was that some of these items could be built by city staff at future date and time. And I think, for the record, I think there's still some discussion about some of those items. The bollards, for instance, the standing curb at the east and west end are pretty minor construction items, but you're going to pay a markup for doing it through a contractor. Let's be fair. I mean, he's going to make a profit on it. But city staff can do those as needed. The one item the main item is the removal and replacement of the mountable curb that's located along Park Street. The history of that is that it was the reason it was put in the way it's there now was my decision at the time to alleviate a water problem that has been a problem in that area for many, many years, as long as I can remember. And once it was installed correctly per the plans, it was identified by city staff or city officials that they weren't happy with the final result. So the intent was to take that out and remove it with what I will refer to as a driveway approach. That'll be 400 feet wide, pretty big driveway, but to lessen the bump that occurs at that location. And that's the center of this Was that good enough?
Yes. Is the west parking lot along Lock Street going to be redone too?
To the best of my knowledge, Councilman, I did not get that directive to remove and replace that mountable curb. That mountable curb was in place prior to this project, and to the best of my, at this understanding, it was the prototype, or it was the reason we used that same curb along Park Street, because the curb on Lock Street is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is keep the water in the street. Whether there's been a outcry of people not using that parking lot, I don't know, but we certainly can include that, but I can tell you that that's not in this change order at this time. Remove and replace that.
That parking over there has the same problem, doesn't it, that the one on Park Street does?
Yeah, it's essentially the same curb. It's a 6-inch high curb that is laid back 9 inches. And the one on Park Street is laid back 10 inches. And that's just because of the equipment that the contractor had to construct it. The intent of that mountable curb is a dual purpose. It's to keep the water in the street, and it allows, as a standard of the industry, to allow that to be mounted and into a parking lot. But the fact is, the city's not happy with that. Maybe they're not happy with the one on Lock Street. But what we intent is for the city to have a project they're happy with. So we're going through the necessary hoops to resolve that issue.
I have a couple. I'm sorry.
When you say the city is not happy with it, what do you mean by that?
Citizens of Pryor, people that have, as I understand, I have not been approached directly, so I'm passing that along third hand.
Well, I will say,
And
go ahead.
And then is that parking lot along Locke Street, is it, was it built by the same contractor as this one?
No, sir, it was
Okay.
built as part of a street rehab project probably in 2013 or 2014.
Okay, thank you.
We addressed that in our street department meeting, that we're gonna have to budget that and put it in there on our, street department budget somewhere down the road,
On the lock side?
on the lock side.
I probably should have mentioned that this change order, because of the financing or the funding part of this, has gone before the street committee as well as the parks committee for their review and approval as well. And both of those committees have moved this to the council with their suggested approval.
I have a couple of questions. One, what is the estimated number of parking spaces this will provide?
The parking on Park Street, as it's laid out right now, is 38 parking spaces.
Okay, 38.
There have been discussions in committee to restripe that as a angle parking versus straight in and head-on parking, and I am an advocate of the angle parking, especially when it's an on-street parking backing into a traffic lane. If we restripe that to angle parking, instead of having 38 spaces, we would have 32 spaces.
We'd lose 6.
6 spaces, yes, sir.
Is that a 30-degree angle?
30-degree angle parking, right.
My second question, when I looked at the original thing that came before council, it addressed redoing a parking. And my understanding that the primary was addressing a parking thing. Is that a normal approach to come into a parking spot to have that steep of an incline?
Yes.
I know it might be normal for an area, and especially drainage, but is that normal and customary where you would actually be pulling into a parking spot?
I've seen it many ways. We have angle parking, on-street parking in Pryor and in numerous locations where there is not a curb at the beginning. You just, it comes down to a pan or to a gutter at that level. And it's a much gentler slope. In this particular case, I made a decision that keeping the water in the gutter and not letting it spread out 4, 5, 6 feet wide and causing an issue there was just as important as the access to the parking. It is accessible, but I understand that there's a lot of small cars that have trouble getting up over that 6-inch curb. But it is like I say, a standard of the industry to have a mountable curb.
There is similar parking around the pool. There's always been a curb you pull up on to pull up to the pool.
Well, it stinks.
I think if you even look at the park itself, it's the same curbing or similar.
We have mountable curbs in a lot of places in town. Some of them are in some of our neighborhoods in front of them. It's the new neighborhood going in east of town. It's currently on hold, but they have mountable curbs. From a contractor standpoint, has nothing to do with this, but from a residential standpoint, they like it because they don't have to block out or saw cut or do anything for driveways. As the lots develop, the mountable curbs are there, and they just connect up the driveways to them. But that's a slightly different situation. But again, we've got cars that have to make that, mount that curb as they go along.
I'm hoping I read this right, but I believe the Envision Civil contractors are going to incur the $16,832.25, and the city will incur the $8,690 for materials.
That's not right, Councilman.
That's kind of the way I'm reading it.
That's what our agenda says.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you how this is going to go down, if it goes down at all.
Okay.
Contractor has agreed to provide his labor, equipment, and manpower to do this work.
Okay.
And when we were first approached that we needed to remove and replace this curb, we got a quote from him to do that.
All right.
He agreed to provide the manpower and equipment if the city would buy the materials that would be necessary to put the concrete back in.
Okay.
So the $16,000 number, $16,832 will be paid to the contractor. He's not donating that or dedicating that. That will be paid to him for the change order to do that. again, the reason it's paid to him is it is not this is not being approached as a flaw. It's being approached as it's not an acceptable final product to the city. And so he has agreed to do it let's call it at dedicating his equipment. This is a busy time of year for him, and for him to do that for something that does not include profit and markup is.
So we will be incurring both costs on that.
Yes,
Okay.
both
The way
sides
it
of
was
that.
reading, it didn't really read that way, but.
That was my question. That's why I called him today, because I had the same question.
Okay, I could see how you could read that phraseology, but that's, this change order will award to him $16,832. The materials cost, as I understand it, is coming from the street department, being provided through their annual contract bids for concrete, which, by the way, the street department Pryor can get the concrete cheaper than the contractor can get it. So
Yep.
it's good on both counts.
We have to get it done before, either that or they're gonna park in the street.
We have to get it done before the,
We do have to get it done, but just, I'm not a contractor, but as somebody who's had kids that play tennis, let's never do those humps again.
I'm sorry.
Let's never do those humps again. Let's figure out a different way.
And I will add that I am the one that originally brought up the big red flag on this project from citizen complaints and myself going over and driving over that curb and said this curb is too high for a car to go over smoothly and such. So I'm the one that brought all this up. And I think it should have been done different, but it wasn't. It's hindsight now, but I'm the one that brought all this up to begin with.
Way to go, Mr. Lamar.
It's gotta be done.
you gave an appropriate voice for
Yes.
citizens. And, Chris Gontier gave an appropriate voice for citizens, and that's what our job is to do. So, thank you for that. Other discussion? All right, we'll call for vote.
Shropshire,
It's gonna have to be done, so yes.
Nance.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Chitwood,
Yes.
Barham,
Yes.
Gantier,
No.
Seaver,
Yes.
Lamar.
No.
Motion carries. Item D, report and update from Ad hoc Audit Committee. That would be Mr. Lamar and Mr. Shropshire.
Okay. In your packet, and also printed off copies that should be in your, somewhere in your pile there.
Like this one here?
Yes.
It's easier to read.
There are 3 different drafts of requests for proposals. Again, these are just drafts. They are in Word to where they can be changed. We have one for architect, one for construction management, and one for CPA. And to be totally transparent with you all, Choya and I decided that we should use our city resources. We have an attorney and we have our accountant, Mr. Coker, and we had a meeting and came together with some ideas that we have gotten from amongst ourselves, from at least one of our council members, Chris, and some members of the public. And we really appreciate all the input that we did get from the few people that we did talk to. And this was done as a draft. And you also have a copy that looks like this, that's got yellow highlight on it. And that is Councilor Gantier's draft of issues or questions that he thinks that should be in it. And that's what we're here to discuss tonight. For everybody to come together and look this over, and hopefully you did over the weekend. I think, gave you all a heads up on it on maybe Wednesday or Thursday. And so here we are. And we want your input to look this over and come up with some ideas tonight on how to finalize these requests for proposals and get this ball rolling. And hopefully, can come back at the next council meeting with our final draft to approve to send out for proposal. We are also going to come up with the names of several, and I say several, firms in the CPA world and in the construction audit world that do these. We have found, and again, we aren't perfect in this, and we've only been able to find what we've been able to find. If anybody else can come up with any other firms that we haven't come up with yet, and I know you haven't seen that list yet, please give them to us, and we will send these out to all of these firms to request a proposal to come back to do the audit. We don't know what the cost of the audit's going to be until they submit their proposals back. And I think that we're far enough into this now and in the eyes of the public that at the time that these proposals come back on what they're going to cost, we're going to have to do some hardcore soul searching on whether or not we can afford to do that. But I think in the eyes of the public, we are committed to press forward to have a unbiased, complete audit of this process and of this project. But anyway, tonight, we need your input on what you would like to see in this and what needs to be changed. Hopefully, like I said, you've had several days to look it over.
I do want to mention something. When I was talking with our state auditor's office, they didn't give me any specific instructions because they can't do that. But they said in general, when you ask anything that you want to have done, you need to be very specific. And that's what was told to me. And so when I wrote this, you know, we have certain places in our city ordinance that dealt with this. We have places, you know, with the Oklahoma Public Competitive Bidding Act, and that's why I referenced those on mine, and as well as some of these other things. And what I did was I pulled some off the internet of others that had these and tried to pull the best of all of what I saw. You know, a lot of them all had the same thing on it, and then some of them had a good idea here. That's where this came from. And then I brought it specific to what we were doing. So that's how I came up with mine. So that's a little history.
We have several other pieces of paper to go with this also that we brought up, different things that we wanted to look into and everything. And I think before, this is probably going to be done on an hour-by-hour basis, what they charge per hour to do this. And that being said, we can have a lot of the information already gathered for them before they get here, so that's going to cut down on the price quite a lot. We've already found out that we need to have this information and other information. And when we get there, we'll have a timeline, basically, when they get here, of when it started, how it went down, the conceptual drawings, all the way up to the completed drawings from the architect. And Willowbrook's request for information that they put in and the timeline that they put in. Also, emails and things that were sent out and possibly not answered in a timely manner, things like that. But when the inspectors, or whatever you want to call them, investigators, get the information, they will have a complete, all the paperwork that we can get our hands on there with the timeline on who did what when and what should have happened when. So that'll all be taken care of also before they start work. So a lot of things that they'll have to do to footwork will be probably taken care of. If we can get all that information gathered for them, we should.
And the ultimate end in mind is to learn for
Yes.
future and to allow any liabilities, correct? Is that the reason why, I'm assuming you're the one that looks like a lawyer that wrote this. So I'm assuming that's why those were added, like the AIAs and the.
And Mr. Ritchie wrote these up for us, and I mean, that was a great help. We wouldn't have been able to perform that meeting. And like I said, we used our subject matter experts to do the things that we needed to get done.
But we need input from you all, and if this is satisfactory to you as it is, then we'll press on. But we as a group need input from you on what you want in this or how you want it changed or added.
The part
And-
where I have expectations in the scope of the audit, I think those are important, that they do look at those particular items, because that seems to be, when we were having the discussions, some of the questions that we had were pertaining to change orders and contingencies and all these, you know, how all that happened and that flow. That was part of what we were.
Are you referencing the expectations page?
Yes. I don't, is that,
So when I crosswalked what you had written versus what you all had come up with, it looks like the scope of the audit, they had, what Mr. Ritchie had written covers everything in that first line item. The second line item, the ones that I think I didn't see in there were the ones that were specific for our city. Is that what you're talking about?
well, let's see. Does it,
The compliance with the Oklahoma Public Competitive Bidding Act, the mayoral compliance, required non-collusion. Those are I know those three.
yeah, I don't see the city.
It was in general, it talked about a city.
So we have that in the city, but that reflects, the non-collusion. Yes, it's part of the city, but that's also state law. So I don't know what the state law is on that one, but it is also a state law. I didn't duplicate it.
But I think what she's saying is that really isn't part of the construction.
No, that wouldn't be part of the
That wouldn't be part of the,
construction.
so that
No,
really
be
would
on
be
the
part of
audit.
this
It would be
audit.
on the
Right.
financial one.
Well, I mean, they are required to, every contractor that gives services over, I think it's 25,000, as well as if they deliver over 25,000, that's a law that they have to have that non-collusion affidavit. Is it 25,000? I think it is. I'm pretty, yeah, it's 25,000.
That's correct.
So, you know, we have to make sure all that's there, you know, and so all of them have to provide it, but on the financial end, it's important there. I really did not spend a lot of time studying into the what would be for the architect and all that. I've really focused on that, and then I got tied up this weekend, and I had to go down to Louisiana, and I didn't really have time to really study the other two parts, to be honest with you. This one I had already studied, and I just want to make sure we cover all those things, because it's things that I was looking that could be relevant to our particular case. And I just want to make sure they're all covered.
Yeah, comments on that,
Sure.
maybe help you out a bit. So Jeff put together all of the specs on the CPA, and in that is a review of the necessary or required documentation. I can't remember exactly how it reads. But on the various things that Chris is talking about, those are all required documents for a government contract, like what we went through. So those are requested. A review of all of that is requested under that language. On the architect and the construction RFP, we're requesting
Oh, okay, I think it was the
a
one.
paragraph by paragraph review. If you follow the format of the contracts, the architect contract and the construction contract, we're requesting a paragraph by paragraph review. So all of those documents would be included in the duties of the architect and also in the duties of the contractor on those specific governmental documents that are required.
But I don't see on the actual one, I mean, I see where you referenced on some of these, or this one, the Title 61 and 61 to 62, but I don't see it on the one for the CPA.
Because that doesn't apply to the CPA.
61 is construction.
So they wouldn't be the ones to look to make sure
that financially, that, you know, that those documents would be there, they wouldn't be the ones that would look into that?
But it's requested on all the necessary documentation,
So the construction
but the
will be
statute.
handled with the 61, Title 61. But the CPA is just looking at the financial, and that's what he was just talking about. All the required documents that a CPA is going to need for a complete audit, that's listed in that scope of review and analysis.
I just don't know.
Correct? I mean, that's,
Yes.
It's just, City Bird's office said to be specific, and that's why I was listing things specifically, as were the other ones that I looked at. That was their recommendation, anything you want, be specific. And so that's why.
right here. it
We
says-
actually got in touch with them, and they did send Mr. Lamar here a copy, and all that we could get from them, they've never had one of these construction to go back, and all they sent him on, or all he sent to us to look at was one on a sewer plant. That's all they had. So this is kind of new area for them, and they didn't have, he went to two different places trying to find that, and they just don't have it.
There's no easy template just to get out and duplicate, I can promise you that.
No, there's not.
It took me a while to dig up some of this stuff.
So just as a point of clarification, our budget chair, would you address the city budget? And I think I think people are confused.
Bond
What's
money-
being audited?
It's
bond
two
money
separate, it's two
versus-
separate items. The city budget has actually works off of our tax dollars and everything, and it's completely separate from what we're gonna call the bond issue and the money that we have to build the, police, fire, and the library, work there. So it's two complete different areas. And as a matter of fact, the budget committee has nothing to do with the bond issue. The budget committee works strictly with the city budget for the year to do with the tax dollars. And so, two separate, total different issues. So that's how that works.
Because the city budget, we're looking okay.
We're not.
Using caution, we're not, but we're
Yeah.
using caution, but we are not.
Yeah, absolutely has two different things.
So the audit we're talking about is not the city
Not the
budget.
city.
Not
It
the
is
city
the bond.
Absolutely not.
is
This,
the bond
this is
only.
only concerning the monies involved with the bond for this construction project only.
Point of
Every penny
clarification,
of how that was spent.
is it a bond or is it an excise tax?
It's a loan.
It's a loan.
It's a bank loan
It's
is
a
what it
bank
is.
loan funded through excise tax.
When you say excise tax, you mean sales tax.
Sales tax.
Sales tax, yes. It is a set aside sales tax for that purpose only.
Good job. So does anybody have any changes that you want to make to this document? And if you do, please submit them to us ASAP so we can readdress these issues and come up with a new final.
I'll try and go
Thing for
through
you.
it line item by line item and make sure everything in this week and get it to you.
It helped that the contract was attached. So when you look at it, make sure you're looking at this
Oh,
part.
I did read the,
Also attached as documents in your packet was the contract that was signed by Mayor Trammell with the architectural firm, and then the one that was signed by Mayor Lees with Willowbrook.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. That helped tremendously.
I think it's important to familiarize yourself with those contracts, because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to be familiar with that document.
Yes, and I want to add that our colleague from the south side down there, he really studies the contracts, and he can read them verbatim, whether they be an engineer's contract or whatever contract. He's pretty thorough at reading those things and understanding them.
Well, my compliments to council for jumping in and doing this job, because there's nothing about it that's simple, and there's nothing about it that's quick. And so it takes patience and endurance to do it. So I appreciate your work.
So, anything from anybody?
No.
All right,
So does anybody have an objection to trying to get this put to bed at the next council meeting to finalize and approve a final draft to go out for the proposals? And we'll also have a list at that time of firms to throw out to you all to say yay or nay, that we'll send them out to all these people. Or if you find someone on your own that's a firm to do this, please let us know. But I will say that in the research that I've done, the construction / architect audit firms out there are what I call the heavy hitters in Houston and Florida and California and the East Coast. There aren't hardly any of those that's in this region, and we'll have to go with what's out there if we want to proceed that way.
And we'd like to thank Alden for helping us find out those people too. Big help. Big help.
So would it be reasonable to request recommendations from individual council members, say, in a week? Would that be reasonable?
Set a deadline? I think.
Sure.
Say, no later than the 15th?
And would the council think we need to consider a special meeting to discuss and finalize all that, or press on with having it at the next regular scheduled meeting? I'm open to either. I've just thrown that out to see what you all think.
May save time on a regular council meeting if we had a special, just to talk about that specific.
I would make a recommendation, when you get feedback from us, if it's not huge, then it might be tacked on to a regular meeting. But if you look at it and it's like, well, this may take a minute, then maybe at that point make that decision.
Okay.
Depending on how it flows, that would be my recommendation.
So for posting an agenda 48 hours before a special call meeting is protocol.
George, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think we're there.
Okay.
All right, so we have done item D and we have done item E. Very good. With no more discussion, we'll move on to item 5, City Attorney's Report. A, discussion and possible action regarding granting TRC companies representing American Electric Power, AEP, Public Service Company of Oklahoma, PSO, temporary easement and right-of-way access to their Pryor Junction as described in the attached agreement. Is there a motion?
Make that motion.
Second.
This is in your packet, page 42 to 46. If you've not referred to it. Mr. Ritchie, would you like to give opinion, give direction?
I've reviewed the agreement, I'm fine with it. I don't have any objections to it. It needs to be done, and they need access, so
You like electricity?
I kinda like it.
I do too.
Questions, comments?
Who made the second?
I did.
Chris, gone through here.
Then we'll call for vote.
Nance?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Chitwood?
Yes.
Parham?
Yes.
Gantier?
Yes.
Seaver?
Yes.
Lamar?
Yes.
Shropshire?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 5B, second reading, discussion possible action regarding an ordinance amending Title 5, Chapter 4C of the addition of the new Section 12 regarding prohibition of occupation of recreational type trailers and recreational vehicles as living quarters and providing for repealer and severability.
Make the motion.
Second.
So there is a motion. Should we also, council, have a motion to waive second reading?
Yes.
I'll amend.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, there's a motion. Who made the motion?
Chitwood?
Chitwood and Gantier to waive second reading. Any discussion, comments?
Yes, I have a question. Just for clarification from everybody on this board, has anybody gotten any kind of feedback from the public on this one? I have not. Has there been any objections or any?
I talked to the code
Discussion.
enforcement officer regarding these.
I had some feedback, but I'm trying to make sure it's which one it applies to. Hang on just a second.
Yeah.
Very little.
Okay.
Because it's already illegal to live in a camper trailer. You're not supposed to stay in it. It's already against the law. And this allows 7 days.
For
My
family.
question on that is, just because it's in our books doesn't mean it's right. Is that a state law that you can't live in your camper on your property? Or is that just an ordinance that
It's a
we
city
already wrote?
It's a city ordinance.
Huh?
It's not.
That's a city ordinance.
So, that doesn't make it right. I have a whole lot of objections about this. I got a whole sheet of paper that I was gonna read, and I'm still up in debate in my mind. But technically, I think this is government overstepping and telling me that what I can and cannot do on my own personal property. They didn't pay the mortgage, they didn't pay the insurance, they didn't pay the taxes. I feel it's government overstep. I think this whole package needs to step back. I don't have any qualms about having regulations for campers in a yard. I've got a camper. But I certainly have problems with the city telling me what I can do and what I cannot do outside of the camper on my personal property. They have no right whatsoever to tell me what I can do. Period. That's all I'm gonna say.
Kim, this is the second reading, so what's the protocols? The next council meeting where we vote?
No, you voted this one.
Yeah, we voted.
This is the official
Yeah.
tonight, okay,
So if you approve it, then it'll be published and it'll go into
Okay.
30 days after.
Well, this was brought up to us by actually the police department, because they were having people that were living in travel trailers, that were next to their home that they were building and stuff, and they were having problems with that. And so that's what brought it up to begin with. And we looked into the ordinance, and the ordinance says that you couldn't have the travel trailer there if it was over 28 feet. You couldn't live in one, period. And we arranged it to where with this one that, let's say you had a holiday coming up and you had overflow, family that came in and you needed a place for them to stay. We made it an adjustment to it to where you could live in it for up to 7 days. And, well, I don't think there was actually a hard deadline on that, but you could live into it until that was satisfied. And, but as far as full-time occupation of
7
one,
days in there.
that's illegal. Is that,
It's already
That's what it says.
illegal.
it's already illegal.
Yeah.
We were going to loosen up the restrictions on it, to be honest with you.
For family members.
No,
Well, it
And-
doesn't-
and
it
times
says
of
or
emergency.
guests.
Yeah.
Or gas in times, and in times of emergency.
sure.
Yeah,
Civil
the
emergencies.
mayor or his designee could extend that, like if a tornado wiped out half the town or something.
Yeah, right. Then that could happen. But most of the houses and stuff do not have everything they need to service a travel trailer. The sewer and stuff, you don't have it there so that you can dump your sewer. That would mean that you'd have to hook your travel trailer up and haul it off somewhere to dump it and things like that. So there were several things that came into play when we were thinking about this. The electrical, we could, you could run a cord from your house over to it and run it if your electrical system allows for it and you have the right stuff in there. If not, well then you're in a code violation from the way that you've got it plugged up. So there were several things that we were thinking about when we did this, and we tried to make it as lenient as we could.
Good discussion. Other discussion?
Well, I'd like to make one other comment. What is going to be the penance for such a hideous crime of living in your camper trailer? Are we gonna end up parking campers down at our new police station because people refuse to pay the penalty that we're penalizing them with? So are we gonna end in business of selling campers on the side? Just a thought.
In the ordinance, what is the penalty?
I think we put it under the general penalty provision, which gives discretion to the city court to go up to the maximum of a $500 fine.
And it would be in, this ordinance, if there are violations, they would be enforced through the police department or the code enforcement officer?
Either one can enforce it.
So it's a simple ticket.
I'm sure you'd get several warnings before you'd ever get a ticket.
Officer discretion.
Yeah, officer discretion. Depends on how hard a time you give him the day he shows up.
I think, Councilman Smith, if you're concerned about the ordinances that are dealing with that issue, maybe see about getting that particular ordinance, since it's already there, brought up to be revisited.
We do, we definitely do. And I'm not against having this ordinance in some semblance, but I believe this is government overreach. And I actually think there's actually some civil rights issues with it. So, in my mind, the whole thing needs to be revisited. And I don't have an issue with my family, personally my family, staying in my camper, you know, for whatever reason they need to stay there. I don't wanna have two campers in my yard, cause then I think we need to designate it as a trailer park. So that ought to be a permit issue anyway. But my own personal camper, I ought to be able to use it however I desire, as long as it's within a reasonable, it's not illegal or immoral. And so I still feel like it's government overreach telling me what I can and cannot do on my own personal property.
Can we ask Chief Nichols, like, the problem that you're having is this, like, can you explain that a little bit more? I'm having trouble understanding.
Again, our previous ordinances we had were a lot stricter. So this is loosening up, to a certain extent, the ordinance that we had on the book. You know, we do run into problems from time to time of someone actually living full-time in the campers. And that's probably what gets brought to our attention. And it's not necessarily it's us, it's the neighbors call and complain that this individual's been living in this camper for 3 months or whatever, and that draws our attention to it. And again, I think the intent of the ordinance was to make some allowances so that if there were issues of visitors or family or whatever, or a house, if your house burned or something, you've got to do some work on it to allow you to be able to stay in that camper. But you brought up a good point that if there's no sewer hookups there, so you are going to have to move it from time to time to take care of those, just the maintenance problems on that.
And
So-
where's a dump station in Pryor?
I don't know if you could dump at the trailer
there's
park.
not,
You just,
yeah.
I don't know that there's an actual dump station.
I think the closest dump station might be at the Love's Country Store down at
Maybe.
Shoto.
Yeah, I was gonna say Shoto, there's one in Claremore.
Days RV will let you
Yeah.
dump your stuff there for a
You'd have to
for a
drag
$5
your
fee. but I
travel
don't know
trailer
how
there
close.
Yeah.
once every week or so to,
They had one.
But again, the police department, we're not here to make the ordinance. That's going to be up to you all to make that decision.
there has been instances also where people were renting travel trailers out that were parked in their yard and charging people rent for that. So that was another thing that was brought up.
Is it during a music festival?
Probably,
Moving right along.
yeah.
Might make some mortgage payments.
4
Yeah.
days.
All right, we've had significant discussion and, on the issue, and we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, call for vote.
Smith,
No.
Chipwood,
Yes.
Barham,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Nance,
Yes.
Motion carries. Item C, second reading Discussion, should we waive second reading? Motion?
Yes.
Wade?
Well, we will have to clarify part of this one. I'll let Mr. Ritchie handle that one.
Did you mark it?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
We need,
Go ahead with your.
we can waive the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so we have Shropshire. Is there a second to waive?
Second.
Second to waive Chitwood. Call for vote.
Want to have a discussion?
Discussion.
Let's call for, should we have call for vote to waive? Or can we go ahead and have discussion like we did before?
We can just waive the readings over.
Waive the reading, and then
Yes.
the discussion possible action regarding an ordinance amending Title V, Chapter 4C of the addition to the new Section 13 regarding prohibition of obstructions of travel in view by reason of parking or storage of vehicles, trailers, motorhomes, RVs, storage units, or other portable units, and providing for repealer and severability. Is there a motion?
Motion and motion to waive the reading.
Second, or
Shropshire and Chitwood.
second to waive the
Second
reading
and
also.
second, very good. Discussion.
What we were looking at here was the old rule that was that you could have one trailer in your yard, and it had to be backed up to your, the line of your building, and it couldn't be over 28 feet. That's all you could have. And so we decided that people have a lot more than one trailer, and most of their travel trailers are over 28 feet. So we didn't really put a length on that. And also, we talked about the obstruction of the view from the road as you're driving down through there. So we didn't
And
want.
sidewalks.
And sidewalks, And you couldn't obstruct the walking down the sidewalks, or the view of, let's say some kids are playing out in the yard, and you've got your Class A parked down there, or your travel trailer parked almost to the road, and a ball goes out, a car wouldn't be able to see them before they darted out in front of you. So that was kind of the reason there. But the old one said that you had to have it parked back as far as the front of your house.
Right.
And so we kind of relaxed that some. We kind of gave it the, where you didn't block visibility. So that's sort of how that went.
On paragraph C, the second line at the end where it says, manner as to block the view of traffic to detect and avoid, it should be and/or avoid pedestrians. That's the change that
Right.
we made at the last meeting, but it's not here. So.
Okay.
I did have comment by a citizen who called and asked about this and said we've needed this for a while, and so supported it. Anybody else have comments from
I had one
We had one.
called,
I had one.
and they were against it.
against it?
They were wanting to buy a travel trailer, or excuse me, they were wanting to buy a Class A.
I think that was a
motorhome.
motorhome, yeah.
And it was gonna be long enough that they were gonna park it in their driveway, and that being said, it was going to extend out almost to the road. And we said, well, we told them the reasons why, and we said you could park it out, at one of the parking areas. Well, they didn't wanna do that, so, I mean, that was the only thing that I had.
I had some questions about it, and then when I explained what it was, they understood.
It's actually more lenient now than it was to begin with.
Other discussion?
My comment on this one is we have a lot of residents within the city limits that may or may not have a camper. They don't have enough room to get it past maybe even not even enough room between their house to house, or not even have enough property to get that thing back there. And that's, I don't know what those people are gonna do. I don't have a problem with this one as much as I do with the other one, but there are people that have campers that can't park them in their backyard, no way, no how, or even the side of their house.
Other comments? Call
I'm
for
trying to
vote.
think how you would, I'm trying to think how you would work around that. The only way you can work around it is,
They'd have to go rent someplace to park it.
about the only way.
You're talking about money out of their pocket they don't wanna spend.
Yeah.
That's just my comment.
Very good. Any other comments? Call for vote?
Chipwood,
No.
Barham,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Nance,
Yes.
Smith,
No.
Motion carries. Eva, we'll need to establish a ordinance number on both of these.
will be 2023-1 on B and 2023-2 on C.
All right. Thank you.
Dash one and dash two, you say?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Item 6, discussion, possible action on consent agenda. Item A, approved minutes, January 17, 2023 council meeting. Item B, approved payroll purchase orders through February 17, 2023. Item C, approved claims for purchase orders through February 7, 2023. Item D, acknowledge receipt of deficient purchase orders. Item E, discussion and possible action regarding the retirement of James Williard from the Pryor Creek Police Department effective March 3rd, 2023. Item F, discussion and possible action regarding appointment of Jamie Knopfinger to Rec Board seat number 1, term ending 8/31/24. Item G, discussion and possible action regarding authorizing J.C. Carroll to serve as fire code reviewer for the city of Pryor Creek. Item H, discussion and possible action regarding approval to purchase replacement library flooring and installation from Architectural Flooring at a cost of $14,071 as in the best interest of the city from general repair and maintenance account 02-201-5091. This action is due to the flood damage on December 26, 2022, for which an insurance claim was made through Oklahoma Municipal Assurance Group. Oklahoma Municipal Assurance Group has paid the claim in the amount of $21,816.61. Other bids received: CNA Roofing and Construction, $18,200. RAM Interiors Flooring and Design, $14,563.31 for just carpet, and $12,628.28 for carpet and laying of luxury vinyl tile. But the library would be responsible for ordering and paying for the LVT separately. Item I, discussion, possible action regarding library surplus of the following items: 23 computers, 8 laptops, 15 desktops, 10 monitors, desk unit with hutch, no inventory number, desk 1 in the photos, desk unit without hutch, no inventory number, desk 2 is in the photos, desk unit with hutch, inventory number 4588, desk 3 in photos. It is currently in pieces because it had to be dismantled to move out of the office. Assembled, it's an L-shaped desk with a hutch mounted on the long side. All functioning technology will be given to other department staff and the public. Excuse me. Non-functioning technology will be recycled. Functioning computers will be reformatted with a clean install of Windows 10. All desk units will be given to anyone who wants them and will transport them. These are the consent agenda items. Which items would council like to remove?
A,
Item A,
E,
item E,
G,
item G. I'd like to also remove item F.
And I,
and I.
Did somebody say F?
I did,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Item I. Then I entertain a motion to approve all the items except for A, E, F, G, and I.
Motion.
Second.
Motion Nance, second Chitwood. Call for vote?
Barham,
yes.
Gantier,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Nance,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Chipwood,
Yes.
Motion carries. Item B, approval payroll purchase, I'm sorry. Item A, approve minutes of January 17, 2023 council meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Motion Chitwood, second Smith. Discussion? Call for vote?
Gantier,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Nance,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Chipwood,
Abstain.
Barham,
Yes.
Motion carries. Item E, discussion and possible action regarding the retirement of James Williard from Pryor Creek Police Department effective March 3rd, 2023.
Motion.
Motion Chitwood, second Smith.
Yes, I'd like to thank James for his time with the city and on the police department. He will be missed, and the best wishes in his new endeavors. And I'm
Hear,
sure
hear.
for myself and the council and the mayor.
That is exactly correct. You'll find his letter on page 56 of the packet. If you've not read it, I would encourage you to read it. He has worked for the city since he was 22 years old and has done so faithfully. I, for one, will miss him, and many others will miss him as well. Other comments?
Appreciate the job he's done.
Absolutely. I asked him if he was going to be here tonight. And he said, I'd rather not. So,
Bittersweet.
I have a question. Dennis, his retirement's effective March 3rd, but when will he actually go on terminal leave or vacation time, or when is his last day to work?
I don't know that he's made that final decision yet.
Okay.
What's gonna be done.
Can we vote no?
Things coming up.
Yeah, you can vote no. Won't do you any good.
Can we vote no and he can't go?
Will Captain Trammell inherit his work project on the construction job, finishing that up?
I'm sure he'll be heavily involved.
That question, you said, can we vote no? You gotta ask yourself, do you really want somebody that doesn't wanna be here?
Well, it's just saying we're gonna miss him.
Well,
No,
he
we
has-
hope the
he has
best.
I'm
another-
just being, I'm
He has
just
another
being
opportunity.
facetious,
We hope the best for him.
tongue in cheek.
call for vote?
Seaver,
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Nance,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Chipwood,
Yes.
Barham,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes.
Motion carries. I'd like to motion for no action on item F. Mr. Knopfsinger we did not have the information in the packet to appropriately introduce him, and we have enough time for him to be considered at next meeting before the rec board meeting
Thank you.
coming in. So, could I have a motion for no action?
Motion for no action.
Second.
Shropshire, Smith, call for vote?
Lamar,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Nance,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Chipwood,
Yes.
Barham,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Motion carries. Item G, discussion possible action regarding authorizing J.C. Carroll to serve as fire code reviewer for the city of Pryor Creek. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion Chitwood, second Smith. You'll find information on him on page 57 through 60, and there's also a supplement that was added indicating that we had done our due diligence and done a request for proposal for more than one. I'd like to invite BK, if you could come and speak in that regard.
We've worked with JC in the past. He's a great guy. He also works for the State Fire Marshal's Office, and he's also a major at Midwest City Fire. So not only does he review plans and know everything, but he also knows getting off the truck and actually working the calls. So I've got nothing but great things to say about JC Carroll. Y'all have any questions for me?
As far as his fees are normal market fees, and there's nothing there's nothing about his fees that are exorbitant.
Yeah, this other one that we just got today, it's pretty comparable, but we have a relationship with the others that kind of what we're,
We do have we also have a relationship with Mr. Higley. He is one of the ones who does some contract work for us in building inspection. But we asked him also to give some consideration because he is qualified.
what would you think would be the different major, is it just a better established relationship perhaps? Because I really didn't get a chance to compare the two.
With J.C. Carroll?
Between him and this other,
Mr. Higley?
Mr. Higley?
Yeah, J.C., he actually worked for the city there in the past, and he also still does all the school stuff, so all the school buildings. We worked hand in hand with him. I actually came to the office in 12. When I came off shift, I went to the office in 12. Chief Thompson had already kind of vetted and started using J.C. Carroll at that time. And if anybody knows Chief Thompson, he's very detailed, and there's no rock not overturned when he goes to look into somebody, and he stood behind him, and that's where I started working with JC. But not only that, like if you got somebody that does this as a consultant for us, if he works at the state level, there's not any kind of unknowns that he doesn't already see, because he's up there looking at the state level, he's looking at us, and like I said earlier, he's also a fireman that gets off the trucks and he knows, hey, you're gonna do this, this is gonna affect how the guys, when they show up, are gonna start fighting this fire. So I think overall, well-rounded, very knowledgeable, and also he's been boots on the ground, so he knows, hey, we can do this and look at that. But he also works real good with the clients or whoever, the builders, or like the schools and stuff. Like when they were going through all the phases at the high school, there were some things he had to look at and be like, hey, we're here, but we're going here. So he was real good at saying, let's move forward and work together to make sure everything's safe, codes are being met, but also like, hey, let's not dump a lot of money in this, because, you know, here's where you're at, but have you all seen the schools they're growing, and when you're growing something that big on a site like that, he had the forethought to kind of look down the road and say, I know you're here, but this is where we're going. So I've got nothing but good things to say like that. And like I said, we've worked with him before in the past and everything else, and he's been great for us on the fire side.
Also, his list of services are more complete than the other candidate when we sent out the RFP. Any other comments, questions?
Yes. Two questions. The second one that you got, why was that one just now given to us today and not in the packet Friday, right? Why all of a sudden do we have one thrown at us that wasn't?
Because it was buried. It was buried and we had to go find it.
Okay.
And
So with a second proposal here and only one of them on the agenda, is it looks like that Carroll was already decided then before this one was thrown out to us today.
we met with BK, we met with, who else was in that meeting?
Steve, there was Kenny Young, and Cheryl Lau was in that meeting when we did the call, or actually JC came in, I think Steve was on the phone at that time.
So the it was a recommendation to use Mr. Carroll and not to use the other ones. The other one wasn't mentioned. It wasn't intended to hide, but what it was intended to do was to make a decision about who we used. The other one did not have the complete services that Mr. Carroll had, and so it really wasn't an even comparison in the first place. So you called and said, was there anybody else? And I had thought about that, and we tried to find it. We had to dig it out, and we found it, and so we brought it to council to show this evening.
And do we have to have a written contract with him to perform these services like other professional services that we use?
We should have an agreement.
Yes, we'll have an agreement with him. He was already listed as a vendor, and I believe I think we already had an agreement with him in the past. So it wasn't, it wasn't something where we needed to necessarily create a new agreement. It was more to renew the one that we already had.
Okay.
And we did meet with him. We didn't do it over the phone. We asked him to come all the way over here from Oklahoma City to do that, so.
And does he charge for the travel to come over here when he comes and inspects, and how often does he come over?
He comes when he's requested.
Yeah, I think that's on the owner and the builder as they come, like, he'll review.
We
the
don't
plans.
pay it, the builder does.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so like, if you're building a building, you submit your plans to him, he reviews them and everything, gives you a comment sheet, you start building on that, then when it comes time for your 50%, he'll schedule that, and your 100%, then he'll kind of do that as he's in the area. He's got a couple different departments or towns he works for in this area, so he'll make it, hey, if you're ready for your 50, I'm gonna be coming next week on Wednesday to go to Wagner or wherever. So he'll kind of coordinate that, but that's all on the builders, and that's more of probably a Cheryl Lau or them, how they do the permit and
We'll have
process
to
all that.
review the Schedule A, the addendum A to our ordinances, because we have the fire plan review fees that are set in there. So if you decide to retain him, then we'll need to review those and perhaps update those.
So if this is just an amendment to his other contract to keep him, or if that's not the right words to use, like when Mr. Ritchie's, when we redid his contract, why don't we have that with us tonight and have it all done?
It wasn't considered, it was considered that we needed to approve him as in the job, but,
And then sign the contract later?
yeah, yes.
Do we have anybody to do fire plan reviews right now?
Terry Whiteley is currently retiring, so he's finishing out what jobs he has. He's been the consultant for us.
Right.
But he's just finishing out jobs, so now as stuff comes in, I think that's where the mayor and them are trying to get somebody up on deck to say, hey, when Terry, and then I think Steve even made comments that he's not too far out the door, so.
Right.
I think it's just preparing for that, but.
Other questions, comments?
So, I kind of feel where Terry's going cart before the horse type thing, not necessarily disagreeing, but shouldn't we have eyes on something to, since we do have to change something, I would prefer we, next meeting, have that to where we could just go ahead and,
There would be no problem with that. If you'd like to make a motion to table, it'd be completely appropriate.
I would like to do that.
I'm gonna second that motion, and my reason for that is that, first of all, BK, you're one of the dudes that I really, really trust. And if you tell me this guy is tip-top, then I trust you. However, I just don't like the way that it's kind of being presented tonight, in the sense that there's no contract, and that he was already decided when this agenda was put out, and then for some reason, we got this one just as kind of a, I'm gonna say fluff. So I'm gonna second Chris's amendment to table it until we just get the formal contract paperwork done.
We have a motion to table, Chris, motion to second, Mr. Lamar. Discussion on the table. Call for vote?
Shropshire,
Yes.
Nance,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Fitwood,
Yes.
Larkham,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Lamar.
Yes.
Thank you, BK. Carried. Item I. Discussion possible action regarding library surplus of the following items. 23 computers, 8 laptops, 15 desktops, 10 monitors, desk unit with hutch, no inventory number, desk 1 in the photos. Desk unit without hutch, no inventory number, desk 2 in the photos. Desk unit with hutch, inventory number 4588, desk 3 in photos. It's currently in pieces because it had to be disassembled to move out of the office, assembled. It's an L-shaped desk with a hutch mounted along, on the long side. All functioning technology be given to other department staff and the public. Non-functioning technology be recycled. Functioning computers will be reformatted with a clean install of Windows 10. All desk units be given to anyone who wants them and will transport them. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion, Shropshire, second, Chitwood. Ms. Carey?
My email to Darla was unclear, so I just wanted to clarify that we're surplusing 23 computers total. 8 of those are laptops, and 15 of those are desktops. The end. That was it.
I do have just a general question. Giving these units to people, which I'm not necessarily opposed to that, do you have an idea of the process of who might be needy for those?
Are we talking about the computers or the desks?
Whatever things on here that you were gonna give to the public,
It says on the agenda that all functioning technology will be given to other departments and staff and the public. So you're giving them away to the public?
They're all 5 or more years old, so they're not obsolete technology, but they're not doing us any good.
And
Probably,
they'll run out of technology within the next year or two, they'll be worthless.
I mean, there's not any
Well, I
value
get that, but
to these units.
Just the way I'm gonna suggest, is it gonna create big problems if we table this?
No, it's not. I mean, they're just
Do it
sitting-
the surplus, the way that it's
Yeah,
surplus.
we need to get with me and review the
Okay.
surplus ordinance and do a little work on this, but, if we could have a motion to table.
Motion to
I'll
table.
change my motion to table.
Okay, I'll change my second.
I have one comment.
Fire away.
I've messed with computers for years and years and years, so I know a little bit about the technology. But these computers are safe to reformat with Windows 10 without any, because that can be taken back off and be reversed.
Sure.
But there's no technology on any of these computers that's going to be
Like sensitive information.
detrimental or whatever. So they're perfectly safe to be reformatted
Right.
and sent out however they're sent out. I just want to make that comment.
Right, yeah, and that's correct. All of it's not like we have personal information or sensitive data stored on any of these computers. Most of them were public computers anyway that we have replaced with our technology plan. So, yeah, you're gonna get a clean slate of Windows 10, basically.
Yeah.
Very good. Other comments? Call for vote. Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks.
Nance,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Chitwood,
Yes.
Wareham,
Yes.
Gantier,
yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Motion carries. Move to item 7, committee reports, budget personnel, Ms. Shropshire.
February 14th,
All right.
Busy day.
Busy
busy
day.
day.
Guys chose Val.
Item B, ordinance insurance, Shropshire.
Actually, at this time, we do not.
Okay. Street committee, Mr. Smith.
Nothing at this time.
Item 8, unforeseeable business, I know of none. Item 9, motion to adjourn,
Second.
Nance and Smith. Call for vote.
Smith,
Yes.
Chitwood,
Yes.
Wareham,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Nance,
Yes.
Motion carries. Pryor Public Works Authority will call to order. Item 2, approve minutes, January 17, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion Chitwood, second Smith. Comments? Call for vote.
Chitwood,
Abstain.
Wareham,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Nance,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
There is no unforeseeable business. Item 4, adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Nance and Smith. Call for vote.
Wareham,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Nance,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Chipwood.
Yes.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Adjourned.
Thank you.
What's that?